What's going on, guys? It's Blxck Fox here, back again with another restoration video. In this video, we'll be working on a pair of Air Jordan 3s Fire Reds from 2005 or 6, one of those years. As you can see, they're pretty much up in age, pretty much give it about 19 years of age. The midsoles, as you can see by the air unit, looks like about to crumble. The paint is pretty much cracking all around. The back tab is pretty much brittle and yellow. All you gotta do is just flick it off and it's gonna come off. So we'll need a back tab swap, a midsole swap, and we'll more than likely give the soles a cleaning and a deoxidation during the restoration video. So let's get started. Before we get into the restoration, the shoelaces have to come off so we can get a better look at the tongue and we can get a deeper clean all around the uppers and the tongue area. And it also helps us to stretch out the tongue area when we gotta clean inside the shoe, because these are used and I don't know who's been wearing them, whether it's with socks, without socks, or what kind of bacteria or germs are inside. So we're gonna clean that out as well. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll be cleaning the interior of the shoe, more specifically the sock liner, the back of the tongue, and maybe a little deeper than that, just to get all that grime and bacteria that's on the inside. Oh, and I'll be cleaning the insoles as well, because I don't know who wore these previously, and I don't know what bacteria or grime might be on the inside. Plus they're in my size, so more likely I'm gonna be wearing these after this restoration is done. I'm using Rejuvenator products, Rejuvenator Advanced Sneaker Solution, and I'll be starting with the soft bristle brush. I'll add the products that I use in this video in the description if anybody wants to buy the products for restorations like this or any similar restorations. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but for those who don't believe me, you see the little hairs and lint balls that's in the crevices of the inside the shoe. That's pretty much what I'm referring to, and we definitely gotta get rid of that to get it better clean. So I'll be using a X-Acto knife just to scrape it out. If you do use an X-Acto knife, just be careful not to cut at the stitching around the strobel board or the strap area, because it will come apart, and trying to fix that is a lot more work than it's needed, especially for this restoration. If you have like a toothpick or something that's not as sharp but a little small to move that gunk, then I would recommend using that. After removing all that, I'll just use a piece of tape just to get majority or if not all of that gunk out of the shoe. You can also use a lint roller or any form of a vacuum cleaner. I believe there should be some small vacuum cleaners on Amazon. I'm not sure they sell them in stores, but that will also speed up the process as well. Here's a little before and after. This side is the side that I touched up. Looks a lot better, a lot cleaner, easier to work with. And then there's the other side that hasn't been touched. It's still dirty, icky. So yeah, let's get back into it. Now I can get back into the cleaning. I'll be using Rejuvenator Advanced Sneaker Solution and the soft brush to get into the areas that I mentioned earlier, which is the back of the tongue and the sock liner, and more than likely will be as far as I can get inside the shoe. Now that we got the interior of the shoe cleaned off, I'm gonna put in Rejuvenator shoe trees just to give the shoe a form. Plus, it'll be easier to clean the uppers if there's any creases. The dirt tends to build up around the creases, and trying to clean it without the shoe tree makes it a lot more difficult. The shoe trees in the shoe will make it a lot easier, and the surface of the dirt would be easier to clean off. The uppers on these aren't too bad, but the Rejuvenator Advanced Sneaker Solution is just going to rehydrate the leather, and since it's about 19 years old, I believe, somebody will just have to correct me in the description. I might be wrong on that, but usually around that time frame the leather starts to dry up. This will help rehydrate the leather and recondition it if it hasn't been before. I'll be using a medium bristle brush on the uppers, since you can use a soft bristle brush, but it won't get all the dirt out. It will probably get light dirt and surface dirt, but if it's really deep in, you would need the medium bristle brush, which that's what I'm gonna just jump into rather than using a soft bristle brush. One tip to keep in mind when cleaning the uppers of fire red, especially the ones of this year, and I believe the retro was 2013, the elephant print fades if you clean it. I believe it's dyed, so just keep in mind that when you clean it, the odds are it's going to fade. I believe it does in this restoration because I threw in the washer, and pretty much if you throw in the washer, just keep in mind the dye will fade away. I tried to avoid it in this video, but it ended up happening. You can try to re-dye it, but at this point it's like there's not much you really can do. Uppers are clean. The next brush I'm going to use is the stiff brusher brush to work on the toe cap and the rubber. More likely I'll be using 40 volume cream to deoxidize the shoe, or the soles I should say, and it has to be as clean as possible. The first step into cleaning them is by using Rejuvenator products. You can also use dishwashing soap since it's a degreaser. I would only recommend using it on rubber since rubber doesn't really dry out. I wouldn't use it on leather because it will take out the oils and the moisture of the leather, and that's how leather quickly cracks and gets destroyed. I also use the brass bristle brush. The brass bristle brush gets more deep into the crevices and also gets in the dirt, especially on the soles. You could also use it on suede, but that's as a last resort. Plus, it's more used if you want to reset the nap. I believe the Rejuvenator brushes nowadays, you don't really need to use it. You can just use the medium bristle brush to reset the nap. But like I mentioned, they may have changed it. I could be wrong. Another tip I just remembered is if you're working with shoes that are over 10 years old, putting it in the washer isn't really the best idea. What will happen is if you still have the midsoles intact, or if you're dealing with anything that's plastic on the shoe, you're going to create damage from putting in the washer, because the water will pretty much overflow all that old brittle material. So usually the best bet would just go to the sink and rinse it from there, and rinse out any of the excess suds from the cleaning product. While the shoes are drying, I'm gonna do a little more cleaning on the shoelaces. I'm gonna use white bright and boiling water to extract whatever dirt I couldn't get from the initial cleaning. I don't know if the camera catches it while I have it in the glass cup, but there are some streaks of dirt. Hopefully when I do this, it will extract majority of the dirt. If not, bring it to the surface so I can do another cleaning right after I let it sit for about a half hour to an hour. So yeah, let's see what we can do. While the white bright does its job, I'm gonna add some boot detergent just to speed up the whitening process. Now that they're dry, the next step I'm gonna take is getting rid of the midsole. Even though the midsoles are pretty solid, if you look at the air unit, it's pretty much fogged out, which is a pretty decent sign that the midsole itself is ready to crumble at any time. You can still use the midsole, probably get a few wears out of it, but I want to get more wears out of this sneaker, so I'm gonna just get rid of it and swap out for a more recent donor midsole. I'm gonna cut out the threads from the toe cap and then pretty much just pull it apart. The glue is pretty old. Like I mentioned, it's about 19 years old, so all I gotta do is just pull it apart, and then if there's any excess, we'll deal with the excess later on. Before I can glue anything back together, I'll have to remove the old glue, and I will start on the soles. I'm going to use a heat gun and acetone. The heat gun is going to activate the glue, make it easier to remove with the acetone, rather than if I just use the acetone, it'll take a lot more work and a lot more acetone. After removing majority of the glue, I'm going to go back over it with a Dremel and a sanding bit just to get any areas that I may have missed, and then just apply acetone and cotton balls again onto the sole. I'm pretty much going to be applying these steps to the uppers as well. You want to make sure that the soles and the uppers and the midsole as well doesn't have any traces of glue to it, because if you apply new glue on top of the old glue, the bond won't work when you put everything together, and it'll just fall apart. Even if you wear it, or if you just do a stress test, it'll fall apart almost immediately. To remove the soles from the midsole, I'll have to apply a lot of heat and a lot of acetone. With this step, you have to be careful, especially around the air bubble, because you apply too much heat, the air bubble will pop, and if it pops, that midsole is done. You have to get a whole new midsole. For the donors, I'm going to be using a pair of Jordan 312 Legacies. They have the exact midsoles, and it also comes with Air Jordan 3 back tab, which we're definitely going to need since the old back tab is crumbling. Pretty much just to remove this is to add acetone into the shoe after taking out the insole, and then wait for about 10 minutes and then apply pressure around the shoe. And you want to cut out the thread as well. It'll make it easier to get the toe cap area off. Plus, it's kind of impossible to get it off once it's stitched in with the stitching around the toe cap. I'm gonna apply wave on cream onto the original soles, more specifically the white areas. I'll put some around the gray areas that have a bit of a deoxidation hue to it, and I'll wrap it with saran wrap to prevent it from drying in my indoor setup. Since my indoor setup does have a bit of heat that gives off to it, it will dry the wave on cream, and if it dries, it won't do its job with the deoxidation process.
Cliff.
While waiting for the soles to deoxidize, I'm going to sand off the Dorn midsole to get rid of the old glue. Also, it will be a good time for me to get a fitment of the shoe. I'm going to just sand off little by little of the midsole between the bottom and the top, and then just check the fitment of the uppers and sole. Just keep in mind that there's about a 10-year gap between the Air Jordan 3 Fire Reds and the donors. so the fitment is going to be completely different. This will give me a chance to try to get a factory fitment of the midsoles. Fitment is pretty good. Did a pretty good job sanding the midsoles. The only problem is that the midsoles are longer than what it should be to the sole. As you can see, it doesn't fit completely to the sole. So to get a better fitment, I'm just use scissors to cut the tip of the midsole so I can get a better fitment when I do apply the glue. There won't be too much of an extension out of the sole to the midsoles. The current color on the midsoles isn't correct to the fire red colorway. I'm gonna use acetone cotton balls to remove that color and whatever paint that's on the midsole, so I can get a better bond with the paint that I'm gonna apply. Plus, it'll give me a chance to apply the fire red colorway onto the midsoles rather than having the black and white colorway on the midsoles. So the acetone and cotton balls alone didn't really remove the paint, which is pretty common with midsoles from Jordan 312 Legacies. I'm gonna try using 600 grit sandpaper to remove the finisher and some of the paint, and then go back into it with acetone and cotton balls to see if that'll work. The original back tabs of the Fire Red 3s, they're pretty much done for. At this point, there's nothing you can do to fix this. It's pretty much going to need a back tab swap. Thankfully, the Jordan Legacy 312s do come with the Jordan 3 back tabs. We'll just have to change the paint later on. How we're going to put it in is by taking out the stitching, but first I'm going to apply bar cement glue onto the stitching just to keep it as a stimulated stitching. I'm not sure how to apply the stitching after cutting it outside doing this step. If anybody knows, just let me know in the comments. But this is pretty much a step that I'm familiar with that doesn't involve actual stitching or doing the stimulated stitching, I should say. Off camera, I applied the glue onto the back tabs, and I applied the glue onto the back of the shoe where the back tab is going to make contact. I'll let it cure for about 20 minutes, then I'll use a heat gun on the back tabs and the back of the shoe. I would recommend using tape just to get a general area where you want to have the glue at, but you want to take it off after you apply the glue, because what will happen is if you take the tape off while it's curing, it'll rip the glue off entirely. Now that we have the back tabs glued onto the back of the shoe, I'm going to glue the elephant print back onto the bottom of the back tab. I'm going to tape around the bottom of the back tab so the glue doesn't get onto the back tab that we just put on. Then I'm going to apply the glue and then take off the tape as soon as I'm finished with applying the glue between the elephant print interior and the back tab. I'll apply the same steps wait about 20 minutes, and then use a heat gun to reactivate the cured glue, and then just bond them together. If you've done the steps right, it should look something like this. I'm gonna go over the areas that I'm gonna apply the glue on with acetone one more time, just in case there was any debris or anything from me working on the soles, midsoles, or uppers. Like I mentioned before, if there's any debris or dirt or even hairs that get on the glue, it's going to mess up the bond between the shoes, and as soon as you stress test it or wear it, it's going to come apart. I'm going to apply a thin coat of bar cement super stick onto the bottom of the midsoles, the soles, the top of the midsoles, and the uppers. Let it cure for about an hour, and then come back with a heat gun to reactivate the glue. One tip you want to keep in mind is if you're using a heat gun, you want to let it cool off. If you don't have a heat gun that has a set temperature, just let it cool off for about 5-7 minutes, because otherwise if you apply the glue as soon as you use a heat gun, you're going to get like that spider web effect between the midsoles and the soles, or the uppers and the midsoles, because the glue is still hot and it won't bond properly because it's that hot. Now that the hour is up, now it's time to bond. Like I mentioned before, you want to just use a heat gun and try to wait between heating up the glue, or after heating up the glue, unless you have a set temperature heat gun. Another way you can go around this is by taping it or using something heavy to hold down the midsoles or soles or the shoe itself. It somewhat works, but you're better off just letting it cool off for a couple minutes and then applying pressure to bond everything together. One tip about applying glue onto the uppers: if you're comfortable with applying the glue without tape, I would say go for it, but I would highly recommend just using tape around and then just quickly taking it off, so you don't have to worry about taking any of the glue off as it starts curing. I'm gonna do the heel to toe method. You can do it either way, but I'm gonna start with the toe and then work my way back. I'm gonna add a drill bit or something small just to make sure that the glue doesn't touch each other or bond while it's cooling off. After applying everything off camera, I taped up everything except the midsoles. I'm gonna use a airbrush and a paintbrush to apply Angela's white paint onto the midsoles. Either way, if you do an airbrush or a paintbrush, just do light coats for the first 3 coats and then go a little heavy after the 3rd coat.
Cliff.
Off camera, I taped off everything except the area I'm gonna apply the fire red custom paint. I just use electric tape rather than regular tape because it's stretchier and it helps me get more into the groove, so I don't have to worry about paint leaking onto the white area I just painted on. As for the fire red paint, I mixed fire red, chili red, and infrared. I don't remember the ratios. I just went little by little until I got close to the factory paint match. Off camera, I apply the hot pink base coat. Since this fire red paint does take a lot of coats to apply, the hot pink base coats will help me apply less coats and it'll be easier to apply the red one rather than just putting on a whole bunch of paint, which will cause it to crack easily. Now we're going to use the fire red mix that we just used on the midsoles and apply it onto the back tab. But first we have to get rid of the black paint that's on it. I'm going to just use 600 grit sandpaper to sand it off, and then I'm going to use acetone and cotton balls to get rid of whatever paint I don't get off with the 600 grit sanding paper. To apply the paint, I'm going to use a small angular brush and a small detail brush. And you can also use a toothpick just to get in with the small details, but you'll be better with a small angular brush or a detail brush. Now that the back tabs is finished and pretty much the entire shoe is close to finish this restoration, to protect the paintwork and the restoration of the area that was painted, I'm gonna use some Cryoline matte finish. I would advise using it outside because this smells bad and I'm pretty sure it's bad for you to smell indoors. One quick tip for the matte finish to back tab: if you ever get any scuffs on your back tabs, you can use Cryoline matte finish or Angelus matte finish to get rid of the scuffs, or at least majority of it. It usually masks off the scuffs if it's not like a deep scuff. If it's just surface scuff, it will mask it off. Only step left is to restitch the toe cap. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys do, make sure to leave a like. If you guys like content like this, make sure to subscribe. I post restoration and customization content like this. Also, leave a comment. Do you guys like this video? Do you guys like Air Jordan 3 Fire Reds? I believe there was a retro of the OG Fire Red not too long ago. I think it was last year. Leave a comment on it. Do you guys like that version, or do you like the 2006 version, 2005 version? Also leave a comment if this is the 2005 or 2006 version. I'm still kind of confused on that. I'm going by the tag that's on the inside. But yeah, this is Blxck Fox, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.